The topic for today, broadly speaking, is research. So, research, to look again, to search again, to find something, to look for something. But with what question, with what purpose? So in this video, I will cover, I won't cover actually, I will paint a canvas of understanding regarding this broad topic. So the scope is not using specific methods or a specific discipline, but it's more towards the idea and the understanding of research, which is mainly divided into two areas. It's the qualitative, which deals with data that essentially is categorized as qualitative. And when we say this, normally the definition and all this depend on the context, depend on the discipline. And then we have the quantitative, which is the measures that you can count them, right? You can count them with numbers. Numbers are equally divided, right? Whereas things that are qualitative, normally it's harder to define them because you cannot have a totally objective measure as good as when you can count something or when you can measure something. So let's consider an example. Let's say we have a fairly simple research question. Is Mary happy today? So we look at our keywords here in the question, which are fairly important. Mary, happy, and today. So Mary essentially is about, you need to find a person. The person's name is Mary, then they will qualify for this question. And happy, what is our definition or criteria for being happy? So you need to define it. Gets a little bit harder than the first part. And then you have when is today, and can we use a date, and how are we going about what do we mean by today? So this is a simple breakdown of a question that looks at something which is essentially qualitative, happiness. So our measures that we had were these three, which is Mary, happy, and today, right? Oops, let's bring them back. Okay, Mary, happy, and today. Mary, then the person's name is Mary, and then quite simple, right? And then today, record the date for which the question was asked. So this is one way to define today. Today is the day in which I ask Mary whether she's happy or not. But I shouldn't say I ask Mary because I haven't defined the method yet, right? There's no method here. Here we're just asking a question. But because a lot of this has to do with the coherence, right? So how your keywords relate to each other. How do we define today? By the day in which this question, is Mary happy today, was asked. That's how we know what is today. So we record the date, whatever the date is. But when it comes to being happy, then how do we define it? We need a context. So normally a definition, where should we start? Can we define it ourselves? We can define it ourselves, but when it comes to research, normally you need to have some reference to how you're defining something, because people want to see your question relative to what other people have done or other people have said. As a society, we're doing research, right? So as a society, yes, how you define being happy is important, but then you want to do research in the academic context. If you want to do in the academic context, then you need to look at how this concept is defined by other people. So that's when what helps you will be the context. So happiness in what context? You read previous research, you can see many contexts. Happiness is so broad. You can try Google Scholar, just type happiness, see how many results you get. So here, let's look at a concept which I used personally for my master's thesis. I actually pulled out my master's thesis to have a look to make this video. And I was looking at it, and it is a qualitative concept, but I actually used quantitative measures. But here, this is hypothetical, right? So I just want to go over some general aspects of this qualitative concept, parental involvement. So let's say this is our question. This wasn't my research, but this is like a simple form of the question. How much involved are parents in their children's development? Development means children are growing up, right? So they have all sorts of development. But in my research, I was looking at cognitive development. So how much? And when we say how much, then it goes to be qualitative or quantitative, right? So maybe we need to take out the much. How involved? How involved are they? Still, this question can get better and better. That's why research questions always can become more precise, more accurate, right? And they have to go through that evolution. But here is, let's say, as a hypothetical, we want to know how involved are the parents in their children's development. So what sorts of how can we answer this question? We can use what is quite common in qualitative research, which is the interview. We can use the survey, also very common. I use survey. We can even set up a tripod, put a camera, and maybe we want to look at more the behavioral aspects. We want to study the behavior from the movements, from the gestures. But if we're looking at let's go back. We cannot go back. Why? Okay, it's all right. So I just wanted to highlight there before I go to the next slide is when you're looking at the interview, right? You're doing an interview, whether it's different kinds of interviews. It can be very formal, very structured, or more to the unstructured. And but essentially, then you will have a transcript. You will work on that transcript, and then you have many options of how to look at that conversation, how to look at that interview, depending on what framework you're using. But here in simple terms, because the point of this video is the broad understanding of research. So one very basic way can be you just look at what units are there in so you just identify the units of and what they mean, and then maybe you can group them into themes. This is just some very simplistic way to talk about it, and then those themes can try to answer your question. The question was, how involved are the parents in their children's development? So depending on who is the conversation between, what are the conversational partners, who are the people in the interview. But one simple way to do it would be units and then themes. Now let's look at a quantitative question. How many apples are there in the room? So again, your keywords are how many. This shows that this is a quantitative question, right? How many? So you need to give a number. And then you have apples, and then you have room. So for how many, maybe you can use a third person to count. Maybe you can ask somebody to count. Are you going to count yourself? Are you going to count yourself and ask somebody to count? How many people are you going to ask to count? Maybe it's not necessary even, right? Maybe you have some other way to count. But this can be a way. Ask a third person to count. And this 2 is wrong, by the way. 2 with 1 O. And apples, this one is easier, right? Apples, Do you need to define them? Maybe. But apples, I mean, relatively, it's easy to define. Apple is the fruit, right? The fruit, apple. Or is it? So as long as the room is identifiable, so the location, you can identify where it was. Location means address, means place, right? So as long as it's identifiable, then it's fine. So and then we thought defining it is I just the point I want to make with my very unsuccessful example here. I mean, let me bring this back. Okay, all right. So with this, I don't know, I just wanted to I mean, what came to your mind when you saw the question? And I just want to illustrate to you that even the most mundane concepts that you can be, I'm sure what this means, I'm sure this has just one definition. It can easily you can easily be making an assumption that might not necessarily be right. So that's one of the benefits of research, is that it will test your assumptions and it will show you where you need to change those assumptions. So when we're asking how many apples in a room, probably there are apple devices. So then go back to the question. You can make the question better. Question the evolution of the question. Maybe there's 3, 4, or maybe there's none, right? But at the end of the day, it's a natural number, right? It's a natural number. Means 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a natural number that you can count how many apples there are, apple devices there are. So a bit more serious question, a bit more serious quantitative question would be, is there a relationship, this is very common, between X and Y? Is there a relationship? When you say, is there a relationship, this is very, very suitable for a correlation study. Again, broadly speaking, each of these topics can, have several subtopics and so many different aspects to them. But essentially, this is a broad and good question for a correlation study. So when you say you draw your X, you draw your Y-axis, and then you will have your data points. So now you can see a bit the contrast. You can go back the video, you can go back, look at the qualitative and see how the concept, as it shifts to more quantitative, then what are these different arrangements of those concepts when it comes to qualitative compared to quantitative. So you have your data points, and then these data points are scattered. So if we want to have a correlation coefficient, probably it will look something like this, and it can also look something like this, or it can also look something like this. So we call the first one positive relationship between X and Y, and then we call the next one there's no relationship, and then we call the last one there's a negative correlation. So this is just depending on that the slope, and depending on how in what pattern these data points are scattered. So thank you so much for listening, and I have a few ideas about future videos that I'm going to list them here, and please let me know in the comment section what is your opinion and which one you think is more relevant to you, or maybe there is a topic that is not listed here. But essentially in this series I want to cover the broad topics related to research which deal with these subjects, and other ones which you might find useful. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video.